Hello, hello, hello. Hello, everyone. Hopefully, anyways. Hopefully, we are connecting. There we go. Hello, everyone. Happy Friday. We are here. It is Friday. We have a little Bandita who is staring at me because I briefly said her name. There she is, hanging out. How is everyone doing? What is going on? Hello, Evie. Happy to get my chance to get in, and hopefully we'll be able to watch your whole live stream of very important information. Well, here we are starting, so ask your questions. Hey, y'all. Finally back. Wrapped up a kinky boot camp yesterday and heading to a munch on Sunday. Have fun with that. Yes. Very, very cool. I love it. Kinky boot camps are fun. All right, so my lips are just like really dry. Not that lip gloss really helps, but yes, Bandita is here. I am here. It is Friday. Okay. So I have a couple of things in the title I wanted to talk about. So there's like more stuff with like public play happening again. So I feel like we need to have that conversation, talk about what's been going on with that. And excuse me. Okay, I think I'm good. I finished eating dinner right before stream and had a little piece in my throat. So there we go. And that always makes my nose run. But in any case, hello. Okay. What was I doing? Talking about, oh yes, stream stuff. What's the safe word? New video on CNC so that we could talk a little bit about CNC and the whole world of consensual, non-consent, free use, all that, because it seems to be an eternally hot topic pretty much all the time, but especially these days. And yeah, that's more or less what y'all need to know. This is an 18 plus only stream. So if you're not 18, please don't be here. 18 and above, obviously. If, you're 16, don't be here. If you're 26, that's great. So just keep that in mind, please. Read the rules down below. We have a whole set of rules and FAQ, links to answers to commonly asked questions. So if you have a question and it's like, where do I buy a flogger? What books do you recommend? What movies do you recommend? Blah, 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 stuff like that. It's probably answered down below. And we have some rules as well. They're pretty simple. Basically, just listen to the mods, don't spam the chat, and I don't give medical advice. So if you want to know about if you should go to a doctor or if you should go to the hospital, I'm not going to be able to help you with that. You should probably just talk to a medical professional because I can't provide that information. And just, be respectful. Basically what we like to do here is to have a little Q&A. You guys ask questions, I answer them. We go for about 2 hours and we just, we go back and forth. That is what it is. We have a nice little group here that hangs out on Friday nights. And I also love when people contribute their own thoughts or do follow-ups. If I have helped you all with like a previous question, let me know how stuff is going and we can talk about it more. Yeah. Yes. Welcome new people. Please read the FAQ and description. Yes, exactly. Boundaries and consent also applies to potential vanilla folk who may see a scene. Yes, that is a big ongoing conversation whenever we talk about public play. I think for me, I don't generally make an argument about like, I do talk about it, but it's not like my main argument is not like, the vanilla people shouldn't see somebody in a puppy hood or wearing a tail. Because I don't think that by itself is like necessarily harmful. More what I'm concerned about is the safety of the person in public who is like, and there's degrees of it, right? Because like obviously it's like, well, not every single time somebody's doing a kink thing in public, they're not always like just wearing a hood or a tail or something. Like it can be much more overt and much more obviously adult than that, maybe, let's say. And that I'm like, we can have a conversation about where those lines are. But in general, I think my focus tends to be less on like what's the exact line of like how much visual kink paraphernalia is appropriate in public, and more on like, hey, if you're gonna do this because it seems really hot, let's think about some of the consequences this could have for you personally. Because I find, especially for, I mean, let's be frank, really, like a lot of the people that are drawn towards this tend to be like doing stuff in public, tend to be male submissives, oftentimes people who don't really have a lot of experience doing BDSM in the real life community. So they don't really learn those values, and they're just doing something that seems hot because they saw it in porn, or it's like a personal fantasy of theirs. And because it only exists in a fantasy context, they're not necessarily thinking about potential real world things that can happen as a result of that. And I think we should think about that, because it's not something that we often talk about, at least not in a fantasy landscape anyway. Where do I live? I'm in Portland. I'm on the West Coast. I'm the person from the vampire party question a while ago, currently finishing up my cake for the birthday party. Oh, I remember that. I hope that goes well. Awesome. Yes, definitely also be respectful, be nice. Don't start arguments about politics, please. That's all. I don't have high expectations, really. I'm not going to be a hard ass. Just, I feel like saying use common sense is too much. Okay, I'm going to turn off this light. I was like, something seems off. Oh, I know, I moved. Oh, that's so much better. Hi, doggo. Hi. You got that little smirk you get when you're sleepy. She gets this little smirk on her face when she's been sleeping. She's like, and like one side of her smile ends up being a lot dark. Oh, crap. Okay, I knew it was like something seems off. I'm not doing something, and it was partly the light. Which, I don't know, I've developed this, like, thing in the last, like, couple of weeks where, like, I'm very sensitive to bright light. Like, if the light is bright, I get a headache. I don't know what's going on with that. But, it's neither here nor there. Let's get the chat connected here. I was like, I'm not seeing, something seems off. Okay, there we go. Let's get that saved. Hopefully that doesn't tank my frame rate. We will see. It's saving, it's updating, and... Are we good? Let's see if that worked. Okay, it is working. Perfect. I just saw a message go through. Okay, where was I? I think it was looking for messages. We had just gone live. Yes. Read the FAQ in the description. Needleplay only. All that stuff. Vampire birthday party. Fantastic. Do we ask questions here? Yes, we do ask questions. Oh, and there's like a new feature that YouTube... we're gonna just see how this works. I'm not like expecting anything, but it's just like they have like a super chat goal thing now. It's sort of like a bit goal or something on Twitch, I'd imagine. So we have a goal. I'm not actually expecting us to do anything with it, so don't feel pressured to do anything. I just thought it would be a fun thing to do. So if we get 5 super chats at some point during the stream, any amount, any dollar amount, I will give Bandita a treat. And it would be extraordinarily cute. As you can see, she is so cute, and she's not had her dental treat so far today. So she will appreciate it. I will appreciate it. It'll be a cute, fun time all around, hopefully. Alrighty. Very interested to hear what you have to say about CNC and public play. And by the way, because I do have those in the title of the stream, you guys can ask about whatever you want. It can be about kink, BDSM, relationships, online dating, polyamory, asexuality, queer stuff. Like, not politics, but like if there's been like public stuff, like viral moments on social media or TikTok or whatever you want me to talk about that relate to one of those things as well, that's also totally fine. But we can also talk about more specifically questions about CNC and public play. I also have had a couple people tell me recently they like miss my like old videos about pet play and like want me to talk more about that again, but I stopped talking about pet play because I'm like, well, I kind of like covered it. But if people have questions about pet play that they want to see me cover in a video, definitely share those as well so I can get a sense of what people are meaning exactly when they say they want to see more about pet play. Because I kind of feel like I said my piece on it, but there's always a stone to turn over, you know? Got something really pressing? Consider using a Streamlabs donation. Yes, and the Super Chats and Streamlabs donations, it'll show up on screen. There's a little graphic. It reads it out. It's very cute, and it'll bump your question to the top of the line, because normally I go in order that they come in during the stream itself. Rare for me to hop on these streams. I'm usually at work around this time. Well, glad you could make it. Thank you so much for being here. Oh, we have a Super Chat. Oh, wait. Do we have 2 Super Chats? Wait, I'm only seeing 1. What's going on there? Why does it say, is it viewer? Where is it? Oh, okay. No question. Just want the Bendito to get a treat. Thank you, Andrew. I appreciate that. Give him a treat. Let's go. Thank you, Evan. Thank you. I appreciate that. And feel free if you want to do that. Feel free to also ask a question, but you don't have to if you don't want to. It's totally fine. Or maybe if you decide to want to ask one later, that's also, I'll keep an eye out. I'll watch. Yes, if you also want to include a question mark, just like make sure when you're asking a question, especially when we get later in the chat and it's been going for a while, I will put in like more time to just look at all of the chat, and then I'll miss it if you don't have a question mark. So just question marks are good. Just check our punctuation. Treats, thank you. I appreciate that. I was like, I don't expect anything, but I'm glad that you all are feeling motivated by a desire to see my dog have a treat. So thank you. Cody, what are you talking about? It's not a kidnapping thing. Think of it as a surprise adoption. I feel like I've seen that somewhere before, that like as a joke, and I believe it and I understand it. That's kind of a funny way of thinking about it, though. Technically speaking, when we get pets, we're also like kind of kidnapping them when you think about it. So like every pet adoption is also kind of a kidnapping. But a positive. Oh my gosh. Okay, we already reached our goal. Okay, it's literally going for 5 seconds. Okay. And now I have to go get my dog a treat now. I thought that was going to take like an hour. Okay. Oh, Bendito, you're going to be so excited. Okay, watch. What's that, honey? What's that? Okay, these are the treats that she gets, by the way. Yeah? What are those? What are those? I know we're so ready. Good girl. Oh, those are stuck together. Good girl, yeah. And she's gonna go off somewhere and eat it. And he's gonna crunch. We're going to crunch. I also have I have some special treats that are not the dental treat that I keep for special occasions. That maybe I'll add another goal and we can do that. Look at that. Oh yeah. She loves those. She loves those dental treats. If you ever like, they're good for, she's kind of like in between sizes on the dog treats. The small ones that are like a log are too big. But if you have a small dog and they could use a dental treat. I think even for cats too, they make them really good. She won't eat any other dental treat, but these ones they're like an actual treat. It's not like when you give a kid a vitamin. She actually likes it. But thank you all so much. I appreciate that. The cat distro system mostly seems to feature them deciding to be kidnapped. I mean, yeah, that's it's not kidnapping if you break into the house yourself and put yourself there. I guess that technically is not kidnapping, if you think about it that way. Okay, let's see. where we are at. Thank you all so much for all the donations. I was just testing it out. I wasn't expecting anything, so I'm very grateful. Thank you so much. Yes, you can ask a question or use a super chat. You can put it in the chat, or you can do, basically it all ends up kind of going to the same stream more or less. So you can put it in just the regular chat, which I can't guarantee I'm going to answer it if it's just in the regular chat, because like I don't always see everything. But when you highlight it with a super chat, I will see it. Although, let me double check. I don't think I missed. Oh, now it's being weird. Now it's not showing me anything. Okay. I think I saw all the previous ones. I don't think I saw any questions, but thank you. She has a spray bottle for flu. She will have a floor meltdown in the giant fur coat. Oh no, she's fine. She's like, it's actually not hot here today. It's like in the mid 70s, but I do like when it's been really hot outside in the 90s. Like I do stuff to keep her cool. But actually, because she's just the way that Pomeranian fur grows, she actually kind of keeps herself relatively cool as long as her coat's pretty well maintained, and she's fine with it basically. Every once in a while, like if it's really hot, I'll like dunk her in some water. Like I'll put all her paws in water because they lose heat through their paws. For the most part, she's good though. But I appreciate the concern. Always good to make sure your floofy doggos are doing okay in the heat. But luckily not a hot one today. Actually, it rained a couple days ago. It's cooled down a lot since then. Hello, Evie. I commented a couple months ago about your info guiding me into my first DS relationship. Things are going great. Thank you so much for your wonderful info. You are so welcome, Brittany. I'm glad that worked out for you. Thank you for giving me an update. I love updates. I just want to say that you've been very helpful with information about the community and different aspects of the lifestyle. Well, thank you very much. You are so welcome, Mark. Yes, and if you have useful insights you want to share into questions, feel free to also share those as well. Finally made it to a live. Welcome, Jen. Hello, Evie. Glad I caught you on time. How was your week? My week was pretty good. I did a bunch of stuff I've been like adult life-wise, I've been putting off for a long time. Like I had to take my car into the shop, not for like a big thing. It was like, you know, when you hit mileage milestones on your car and it's like, oh, you have to do this maintenance, you get your oil changed, tires rotated, whatever. It was like one of those. But it was going to be a whole drive to get my car to the dealership to get the service done. So I just been putting it off. And I finally did that. I like deep cleaned my car, like myself. I changed the wiper blades on my car. Like I did a bunch of like car maintenance stuff. I was house sitting for someone over the weekends. I started listening to audiobooks for the first time. I've like, maybe in my life before this, I think, God, probably like somewhere between 5 and 10 years ago, I got an audiobook to listen to on, I think it was going on a road trip with somebody. And we only ended up listening to like a chapter or two of it, and then we just ended up listening to podcasts instead. We didn't actually finish the audiobook. And then I've never tried an audiobook again, but I have a friend that had the hookup for some audiobooks, and I was like, hey, can I like download these books? So I am listening to an audiobook again, which is, I'll just tell you all what it is, because I'm shocked this is like, people talk about like, what do people talk about? They talk about like Nana Tokoru, they talk about Love and Leashes, they talk about Sunstone. Oh, these are, and then like all the various like explicitly like kink erotica novels. Like people talk about those as like, oh, this is like kink representation in novel form, and like, you know, you should talk about this. The thing I've never seen anyone except for like my own friends talk about is the Kushiel's Legacy series. And holy fucking God, those books are so long. Like the first one, I think is like 900 pages. Like it's like the length of one of the later Game of Thrones novels. And I read the first two a couple of years ago, and I was like, well, I want to get back into the series, but I don't want to like leap in with the third one because I'm probably not going to remember everything that happened in the first two because it's been like a couple of years. But I don't want to have to reread like over 1,000 pages of a fiction book just to get to the third one again. So I'm listening to it over on audiobook format. Weird that it's kind of based in France, but the narrator is an English lady. Why couldn't we get a lady with like a French accent? I don't know why we decided to go with English, but I feel like that always happens. Like whenever we're making a movie about anything that's like outside of America, or like an audiobook with a character that's not American, it's like, oh, British, that can be a stand-in for basically any accent you want. So I wish they had a French accent for the narrator, but they don't. So, you know, it's the only official one that I know of for a narration of that book series, so we kind of got what we got on that one. So I'm reading that again, and it's interesting. I'm only like a couple of chapters into it. I'm on like chapter 8 or 9, I think. But if you ever want a really long book series to read that has some like
Dickman donated $5.
questionable kink
Your
elements
last
in it, it's
video
not
is an
like
excellent example of how subs
necessarily
have
always fun,
way
consensual
freakier and
kink. The
weirder
lines are
ideas
blurred
than
there,
most
but
bombs.
it's an interesting exploration. I think a lot of kinky people enjoy the series, especially if you are a masochist or a brat. You'll probably find something in it to relate to. Your last video is an excellent example of how subs have way freakier and weirder ideas than most doms. Yeah, yeah. I mean, well, part of it is also that I am a sadist, so I have that combination of both my own experience bottoming and being submissive and feeling comfortable in that role. Like, I don't have the way that a lot of doms and tops do. I don't have that like guilt or shame that like locks off the portion of my brain that comes up with terrible ideas, because I'm the one who'd be experiencing them. So it's like okay to imagine them. And the sadism side also just allows me to realize like how something would feel and understand that more from that perspective. So I kind of get both, but I don't have the inhibitions. I don't have the inhibitions that somebody who is a pure top or dom would probably have. So yeah, it's a skill. It's a skill. And I really struggled with knowing what to call that video. Like, I'm like, this video is really fun, but I feel like any title I use to describe it does not accurately communicate like the fun idea of the video, which is randomly pulling 3 kinks out of a hat and then having to come up with a scene on the spot for something that includes all 3 of those kinks. Like, it sounds like maybe just on paper it sounds like less fun than it is, but so far like 90% of the comments are people telling me that it's like a really fun video and they want to see another one and it was exciting and they laughed to it and they had their own ideas and like they appreciated it. Yeah, you okay? Okay. We have a little honk sometime. Can you replay my Streamlabs one? I didn't see it go through on stream, but it went through on my card. Streamlabs. The mods can't see that because the mods are just for YouTube. But I can see it on my end if I check it. So give me a second. I'll see if I can just pull it up on my phone here. I do see it went through on my end too. I can see that you sent me something. How do I get to? Let me look at Streamlabs here. Let me see if I usually. Unfortunately, like the place I can check super chats on YouTube does not integrate notifications for. It's like they kind of go to separate places. But if you give me a second, I can check on it. Hopefully it's not going to have me do like 2-factor authentication and stuff, because that would be annoying. I think it's just going to let me log in. Okay, sweet. We're in. We are in. All right, let me see. Where is that under? I haven't had to check this in a long time. Is it the snow leaves one? Just got here. Happy to donate for treats. Also, I'm curious about your thoughts in regards to having CNC as a kink in response to trauma. Oh, okay, sure. Okay, so I think this is a little bit of a complicated topic because, okay, well, I will say this. Actually, do I still have that? Okay. I feel like I literally just read this article for something else I'm working on. And I'm not saying this is like something that's happening. But in the world of PTSD, especially complex PTSD, which is CPTSD, it's not recognized by the DSM, but it is recognized by the one in Europe, the ICD. I think that's the one in Europe. Yeah, ICD-11 is the current version they're on. And I was reading this article about how PTSD can affect relationships. And literally the top bullet point in this article, this is from Psychology Today. It says, repeating the same relationship over and over. Those who have experienced severe trauma in their lives often gravitate to situations that not only trigger their unhealed core wounds, but that are often unsafe, yet get confused as comfortable. This is what can perpetuate a cycle of toxic, intimate relationships based on repetition compulsion, unhealed core wounds, and confusing what's familiar as safe. And I think there's another article I saw something similar to. Oh yeah, this is another thing that can also happen. It's sort of related, sort of the two sides of the role play and kink coins. There's another article that talked about how this can also lead you to want to search for a rescuer. So it says survivors often have one or two different reactions when it comes to relationships. They will either search incessantly for someone to rescue them, or they will avoid relationships altogether. Those who search for someone, this is from the CPTSD Foundation.org, by the way. Those who search for someone to rescue them feel helpless and believe they need someone to save them from the pain of their past. They believe if they get involved with the right person, they can feel complete again and rely on them for comfort and support. Sadly, this thought process often leads survivors choosing the wrong partner. This thought process leads to survivors choosing the wrong partner due to human tendencies to find romantic relationships that mimic our childhoods. These unfortunate people ignore behaviors that others would see as clear warning signs. Instead, out of deep desperation, they look past any flaws in order to experience love and validation. This lack of discernment of others can lead to the perpetuation of exploitation and intimate violence. So, essentially, my reason for kind of bringing that up again here is because I think when we're talking about getting into CNC from trauma, I think getting into kink from that is sort of a different manifestation of that same underlying tendency of you experience trauma, you're maybe processing it, maybe you're not, but you think that it's helpful or comfortable or familiar in some way to act out those fantasies again with another partner. It's to me, it's the health, using kink as a way to explore those kinds of fantasies or those kinds of circumstances after trauma. It's the healthier, slightly to very much more aware version of that repetition in relationships or looking for someone to heal you. Cause you're almost you're kind of doing both at the same time. It's this is my partner, and by doing these things with them and learning how to trust them, I can kind of heal myself by having these experiences. So it's that kind of aspect of having a rescuer sometimes. But it can also be that I'm re-experiencing this trauma and kind of poking at it again, but in a way where I'm in control, I can say no at any time, and I'm recontextualizing that experience and getting to replay over it and over it again. And I think that that's probably better on average than getting into whole ass relationships where you're subconsciously reenacting traumatic experiences because they feel comfortable and familiar, and you're doing them because that's what you've learned for whatever reason. That's what love looks like or what an intimate partnership has to be like. But yeah, sort of connecting into that, I would say certainly it's very possible and also very common to be drawn to certain kinks because of a traumatic experience. And it doesn't have to be just CNC, right? I've heard this too with ABDL, I've heard it with DDLG and CGL relationships. Many different kinks can be something that someone's drawn to if it's related to an experience they've had. So it's not even just a CNC thing. It's kind of just a thing that human brains do sometimes, and it can take on the form of desiring a consensual non-consent relationship or a scene or whatever, just in case you don't know what CNC stands for. And I think the most important part of it, well, it's hard to pick what the most important part of it is, but for me, in my estimation, sort of the top things I would look for is number one, first off the bat, is your partner has to be aware of what's going on. Because if you're using a scene or a relationship to reprocess trauma, and your partner is not aware that that is the role they're playing, that they're sort of playing like not just a role play perpetrator role, but you're kind of acting out something that somebody actually did to you in real life at one point in time, or something similar in, you know, same flavor range as that. You know, that's a whole other level to expect a dom or a top to go to. And many people are fine going there, but they should be aware that that is the role that they're taking on, because they might be dealing with their own shit. They might have a lot of people that are doms and tops also have experiences with being traumatized and being victimized by other individuals. And so for them, taking on that level of realness in being the perpetrator may be something that they're not willing or able to go into for their own mental well-being. So all parties have to be informed that what you're doing is a CNC thing that's based on something that happened to you that's traumatic, or you're doing it as a way to process trauma, and like how that maybe informs the roles you're both wanting to play, or the vision that you happen to have for the kinds of activities you want to do. So everyone has to be informed. I think number 2, I would really strongly advise being like having some distance from the traumatic experience. Like if you have a traumatic event happen and then like the next week you're like playing with it with a partner, I'm not going to tell you what to do. I'm going to say, in my opinion, in my experience, I think that's probably a little too close together for it to be beneficial, and it could actually end up making things worse in the long run compared to if you had waited to engage in that kind of activity. So I would probably wait, and it depends because everyone's individual, and like there's PTSD and there's CPTSD, and then there's like ongoing trauma, and then there's like single instance trauma, and like it gets complicated. I'm not trying to come up with like some kind of one size fits all rule, but as a general guideline, I feel like probably at least like a couple of months between the last time an event happened and when you're starting to think about wanting to recreate it, just because, you know, you want to set yourself up for success. And I think if it's too close together, it can end up, even if you think you're ready, you might not actually be as ready as you think you are. Also recommend having some mental health support in place already, if that's a therapist, a counselor, some kind of group therapy thing, just having something there, some kind. And I know mental health treatments, especially in America, or even in the NHS, if you're on a waiting list, like they're not always accessible, but I think having something is really important if you want to do something that's closely replicating your traumatic experiences, or that could be unearthing some things that maybe you might not have the skill set in your toolkit to be able to handle on your own strictly. So that's sort of what I would probably think about if I was wanting to get into CNC, if I had a traumatic background that I maybe wanted to play on. And I've sort of been talking about it like it's like, oh, you're gonna like, you like, I'm not gonna give an example because I don't want to trigger anyone, but you know, I'm kind of talking about it like, you know, you have an experience and then you're trying to like recreate something in that realm of experience, but it doesn't have to be that way, right? Like you can have like, let's say trauma from like a DV relationship, and then you can want to do CNC and have it like be nothing like what you did in the DV relationship, but because there's an element of like loss of control and non-consent, that by itself is a connecting factor between the two, even if superficially they're not really like visually similar. There's not like role play or costuming that makes it similar. Like they're not actually circumstantially really that similar on the face of it. It's more the underlying currents of it that end up creating a similarity, and that can end up activating quite a few things for people depending on where you happen to be in your healing journey. But I'm kind of speaking generally because I don't like, I'm not your therapist, I don't know the whole details of what's going on. But yeah, that's sort of the surface level of it. I don't know if I think this is from the same person. Yeah, it is. Okay. So follow up. Also, it's been 4 years at this point, and I've definitely healed well. Okay, so like 4 years is like, that's very different than 2 weeks. That's a different game there. And also part of my caution around like not doing stuff immediately is it can take a while for PTSD to start to show up. So you don't want to be like, oh, I'm fine actually, and then like run directly into a brick wall. Like that, I don't want anyone to have that experience. So that's part of my caution as well there. But anyways, I'm definitely healed a lot, but there's still some stuff to process because it took me like a year to even figure out what happened to me was wrong. Yes. It's I don't know what the stats are I have heard before that I think it takes on average like 3 years or something for people to, especially for people that had stuff in childhood or from trusted adults in their life, it can take many years to come to terms with what happened. And even if you're at a point where, and I'm not saying this is you, but I'm, again, speaking more generally here, even if you're at a point where you've started to acknowledge part of it, it can take a lot longer to fully accept the genuine extent of it. Like, for example, to give something from real life, there is currently a story going on in the UK with an actress who many people may know from being on the BBC Sherlock show with Benedict Cumberbatch. And she was on a really, really popular TV show called Strictly Come Dancing. And she had a terrible time on the show because of her dance instructor partner. And during most of the time when she was talking about it, she talked about it as like a physical bullying thing and like a verbal bullying thing. But the longer that she talked about it during an interview, like the interviewer kind of got around to having her say that it was sexual as well on top. But she almost like couldn't say it herself. Like it took somebody walking her there and then directly asking her like, hey, was this also part of it too? And she's like, yeah. And it's because to my mind, not an expert in this, but just from what I've known myself, like that's very representative of when you're in the stage of like, I'm aware that certain things happen to me and I'm willing to admit to that, but there's a whole other level that I haven't really touched on yet that I've not integrated and I've not really processed. And not to be in any way judgmental about the fact that there's like sort of sectioning happening here. I think that's a very like apt thing for our brains to do. But like, it can take a lot of time is my point of like, yeah, you might even like relatively quickly be able to assess something wrong happened, but it can take even longer than that to like fully understand the whole scope of it, It's a whole deal. We have a super chat here from VXU. Hi, my partner and I, T for T /Ace, discovered a lot of kinks together. We'd like to be involved in our local community and find platonic play partners and friends, but we're not sure how to navigate it together. I will definitely answer that, VXU. Thank you. I'm going to finish up this one just because I feel like this is a sensitive topic and I want to make sure I'm giving it the full space that it deserves. But thank you so much. Okay, so yes, thoughts about having CNC as a kink response to norma. Yes, I think if it's been like 4 years, you're probably like a pretty solid place to be able to start to explore that with a partner. I think it's like with most kinks, maybe even more so in this. It's about systematically, intentionally, and in small ways, building up more and more over time. Like, I would not have, this is a classic mistake that a lot of people make, is they, like, leap in head first, and they're like, I'm going to do a break-in kidnapping scene, and they're going to put me in the back of a car, and, like, drive me to the woods, and, like, it'll be so fun. And that is something that can be successful for some people. I would not recommend that as a starting point. It's like a first thing that you do. I recommend doing maybe smaller things during scenes you already enjoy, or smaller things during the day, kind of playing around with how it actually feels like to have certain buttons pushed on. And if that feels safe and good and you feel like you can still trust your partner and it's not like having unexpected negative outcomes, then you can keep adding on more and more, and then you can build and build, and then like before you know it, you're doing a whole like dedicated CNC like kink scene. I think that's the best way to do it, because what you don't want to have happen is something I've personally witnessed. I've seen people who have had PTSD leap like fairly quickly into being like, oh, I can do CNC as like a way to like play with these things in a kink context. Won't that be fun? And then that's how you end up with somebody wrenching their arm out of the handcuff and then screaming and fleeing into the street naked. Like, that's how you end up with people having like extreme unexpected like flight responses, fight responses, any like free, like any of the possible combinations, right? Like you can have so many different reactions, and you really don't want to end up in a scenario where like you're doing a nice fun thing with a partner and then you like end up naked in the street screaming, and then the neighbors call the police because like you're having such an intense flashback that you like are not even aware that you're doing something consensual with a partner, you know? So that's something to really be aware of. Or like if you start to disassociate, because it also can, it's not just like, oh, you're going to flee into the street. Like it could also be like you have a total freeze response and you disassociate and you like stop communicating at all and you like can't say a word. That's also not a great position to be in. But if you slowly work up, it's really about, and I actually have a video I just finished editing while I was eating dinner, where I talk about how to use kink to reconnect with your body. And this is kind of part of that as well, is like building up that sense of safety. And I think that's what helps you have that safe place to explore things in a kink arena and not have it be just re-triggering or just like maybe sort of like poking at like an old wound per se, like getting into a place of actually maybe doing some healing. Oh my gosh, thank you so much. Is that Kayla? Let me make sure I got the name. Kayla, thank you so much for your $20. Oh my gosh, I really appreciate that. Thank you so much. I'm gonna have to give my dog a whole like second treat. I don't even have a goal going, I don't think. But thank you all so much. I really appreciate that. Thank you. Thank you. Yeah, so I think I sort of said my piece on that, but it's about building up a sense of safety and building up with your partner over time, both with specific things in a specific environment with your partner in general. And once you have that sense of deep security and safety, then you have the depth necessary to be able to play with like some more intense things. Like if I'm wanting to play with something that's a little bit more intense emotionally, or maybe is something like I wouldn't do with a pick-up play partner, like I'm doing with a partner that I feel deeply safe with and a person that I know I can totally trust, and that's not the case for every single person I've played with. So there's differences in how I approach things based on how I feel towards the person, how much trust I have with them, because it's not going to be universal and it takes time to get there. But yeah, let's get into the question from VXU, which again was, it was them and a partner, and they're T for T and they're ace, and they want to get involved in their local community and find platonic, specifically play partners and friends, but you're not really sure how to navigate it together. So I will say the eternal disclaimer that I have to give is if you are doing things with other people in public, every scene is different, and I can only speak to my own experience based on where I've lived and on where I have traveled. Different scenes across the country, some of them are like very, very sexual and are like very interconnected with like the swinger community. Some of them are very non-sexual and like sex is not even allowed at parties. I think quite a lot of them in California are this way. Like just depending on where you live in the local laws, you're either going to see a lot of sex, no sex, some sex, people using it as a way to meet friends, people using the scene as a way to meet, you know, hookup partners. There's no universal way of doing things, but I would say on average, in my experience, platonic play partnerships are a fairly common thing. Like if you're in America, if you're at an average play party, unless it's an orgy, you have a pretty good shot of like finding people that are also down for like casual platonic hookup, like, you know, pickup play scenarios. And again, depending on where you live, I certainly have seen queer parties, parties for trans and non-binary people. I haven't seen play parties for just ace people. I've seen like munches and meetup groups. But if you especially are looking for just platonic play, I would start by looking at social events. I would look at munches, discussion groups, classes. If there's any kind of activities, like I know there's kink groups that do like rock climbing together, or yoga, or figure drawing, or pottery, or painting. Like people are doing all kinds of stuff. People have munches at board game lounges. People have munches at, you know, not ping pong, pinball. I don't know why I thought ping pong. I think I saw something about pickleball earlier today, and that's kind of just been in my brain. I've never seen a group of kinky people do pickleball together, but never say never. You know, I haven't looked that hard. I haven't really sought it out. But like shared activities, I feel like are really good. So look for an activity, look for a kink event that has some kind of shared activity, or even it could just be like, it could be a potluck, it could be a barbecue, it could be like a trip to the beach. It doesn't have to be anything like super fancy. It could be something very average that gives people a shared reason for being together other than just like, oh no, we're gonna have a munch and we're gonna talk, I guess. I think having something with a structure to it is helpful when you're like brand new for meeting people and like feeling more welcomed in that environment. So find an event, check it out on FetLife, see who's RSVP'd, see if it's people that seem like you'd be able to get along with, because especially if your local area has multiple munches, there's probably going to be different ones that are more catered to different demographics. So you might have a munch that's all like people in their 50s and 60s. You might have another munch that's for just TNG people. You might have a munch that's got all of the queer and trans folks at it. Like, you never know. Just kind of hunt around, see what your options are. Go to some social events, go a couple times. Go with your partner. It's very, like, most of the time new people show up, they're with a partner. I feel like it's like 50-50 if they're new, like with a partner or with a friend and or just by themselves. That's not a problem. And yeah, I think that way it's a good way to meet people, and it's just in a strictly friendly environment. And then once you meet people, you'll learn more about local dungeons and play parties, events where people actually are doing stuff together, and then you already know some people outside of a play context to maybe talk to about like doing scenes together. And that is basically what I would look for. And then just like if a vibe isn't good, like if you're going to a munch and you're like, oh, this doesn't really feel like it's for me, or I'm like not feeling very good. Like it's like going into any other party. Even sometimes it's better than going to another party, because like you're not going there because it's like, oh, this is like Kristen's party, I have to like be at her party because I know her. Like you can go and then be there for 20 minutes and be like, the vibe is off, like we're leaving, and then you can just go and you can go get pizza somewhere else, you can go to Denny's, whatever you like to do, and then just like laugh about the fact that like, man, weren't the vibes there like really what was up with that? And this treat it as a learning opportunity. If you don't like a place, if it doesn't feel like your people, don't feel obligated to stay. I feel like it's usually easier to leave if you show up early and then like leave partway through, as opposed to like showing up later into an event is fine, but the later you show up, the more embedded people are going to be in conversations already. It's harder to break into, and it can also be a little bit harder to leave just because it can be a lot busier, and there's not as much like churn happening as there is like at the beginning of an event. So that's what I would keep in mind, and then just take some patience. And then if anyone is being weird about boundaries or trying to pressure you to like do stuff you don't want to do, like just tell them to piss off, basically, because that's silly. It's just silly. There's not really any other word for it. Denny's solves so many problems. It does. Well, and also it's like a typical theater kid hangout, which I feel like there's a distinct portion of the kink community that's made up of reformed theater kids, so it's a pretty solid guess. Also, yeah, TNG is the next generation, so 18 to 35, so it's the younger side of the kink community. Discovered Cards Against Humanity at an in-house social at a dungeon years ago. Yeah, lots of card games, both casual and serious card games. It is a thing that people will play. Hi, I've been watching your vids for a while, and I really appreciate you as a kink educator. Thank you so much. I appreciate it. Okay, so I think those were the super chat questions I needed to get to. I think I got to all of them. Okay, great. I will look for follow-ups in case anything pops up. I don't think I've missed anything so far, but we will see. We will see. But after watching your latest video, I asked my dom/partner if there are any kink combos he'd like me to ask you about scene ideas for, and he said medical and BDSM. Sorry, no, it's pretty vague, and he admitted it's straightforward. So there is like a whole realm of kink that is just medical play. Like, it's not my kink. If anything, it's kind of like the opposite of my kink. I'm not really a medical play person. I don't get a whole lot out of like, I have trouble being in a Bed Bath & Beyond, all right? Like, Bed Bath & Beyond is my nemesis, and I outlived it, and I'm excited about that fact. Like, Bed Bath & Beyond, white, sterile, don't like it. I don't like doctor's offices are like better now than they used to be, but like I don't really like the smell, the cold, the air conditioning. Like, it's just, it isn't. I like warm. I like sensual. I like sheepskin rugs in the forest. That's kind of more my energy personally. So I'm not really into medical stuff, but there is quite a lot of it. I don't know what your partner means by just like BDSM, because that's like that. Okay, just so it's a bondage, dominance, submission, sadism, masochism. Like what? Like which combination of things are we going for here? But people do a lot of medical role play. There's like the sexy nurse role play, like in the very over-the-top cheesy way of like, it's time to get your shot, and then it's like a giant syringe and it's filled with glitter. It can be very silly, be very camp. It can also be like more serious and dark, and it's a spectrum, right? Like it's not one or the other. You can have more sort of mild version of it, and then you can get really deep, dark, and spicy with it, doing like, you're in a psych ward and no one believes you, and like they force you to have pills, and then they strap you down to a chair, and they do it. Like you can have people even that know how to do like IVs. There's a lot of medical professionals. I should also say this. There's a lot of medical professionals in the kink field that know how to do things that, know how to do like saline drip, that know how to do like feeding tubes, that like can get very intense with medical play, especially if they're like supervising someone else. Not very many active medical professionals will do that, but it is a skill set that some people do lend at least occasionally. But I'm mostly seeing kind of more the like nurse role play. What's the most common? I like people also like doing like checkups. I feel like that's probably the most common thing, is like checkup role play, where it's like a person, either like an ABDL, a pet maybe, and they're getting a checkup from a medical provider, and they got the stethoscope, and they look at your tongue, and they check the reflexes, and it's kind of like, well, one, you're kind of recreating a childhood experience. Two, there can be an element of like praise and humiliation in that, I find as well, where it's like, you're like, oh, you're being so good. Like, I know it's so hard to sit here and like, how strong your heartbeat is, like kind of like really going over the top with like, oh, wow, you're so perfect and so amazing. It can be praise kink. It can also be humiliation play if you do it in the opposite direction and the doctor is like body shaming you, I guess, essentially. So yeah, I can go in lots of different directions, but the most common is probably like checkup stuff. And then I don't know, I feel like stuff involving like pills or like medical equipment, or like genitorture stuff, probably like speculums. People love I don't understand that. That's like, I understand it, but I don't understand it. You know what I mean? I hate speculums. I think if speculums went in men more often, like we would have much better speculum technology, but some people love speculums, and I go, your kink's not my kink. That's what I say. I say your kink's not my kink, but your kink is okay. It's, not my place to judge, but I can judge for myself if it's not for me. So hopefully that gives you some things to think about there. Back Alley Surgery Center. Dr. Nick impression. Trust me, I've seen this done before. Yeah, exactly. You get there's actually like someone, so I don't want to be too scary about this, but someone actually died, like maybe even two people died, because there was somebody in the gay kink scene who is doing like unlicensed, unsupervised, illicit silicone injections into people's genitals. And then it caused like they accidentally got some of it into the bloodstream, and like killed the person basically instantly. Like it was like, there's no, once it's in there, you're fucking donezo. Like, so be careful. You can learn how to do saline injections, and that's like relatively safe, especially by comparison to that. But there are people who take it pretty extreme and are like actually doing something that is dangerously close to like actual back alley surgery that I do not recommend for the sake of a kink. Like, there's lines, and I don't want to kink shame. I will say there are a number of kinks that, to me, and like public play to a certain extent is also somewhat this way as well. I think the risk reward goes really, really hard in the risk side for what to me seems like not very much additional reward compared to like if you had just done a saline injection or if you just did like a hypnosis roleplay thing instead. I feel like there were trade-offs we could have made that we did not make. Yeah, I think he meant like medical with classic BDSM elements. Oh, like bondage, sadomasochism. Oh, yeah. I mean, probably the main thing with that, like that would be common is like medical restraint. So if people are really into like medical casts, posture collars, straight jackets, like even a lot of the popular bondage gear we currently use today is based on like old medical shit because we loved restraining people by force in the medical world not very long ago. So we have lots of devices we have repurposed for kink, but we have like scratch mitts, we have straight jackets, we have posture collars, we have like again casting, we have like blindfolds, like so many things that came from the medical world of bondage for sure. And then like medical play, like sadomasochism, lots of options there, either from instruments that are from a medical background or using them in like a medical roleplay context. I would say for medical roleplay, what's like the most common kind of impact play? See with that. I mean, I feel like you got a fair amount of like hand. You get like hand stuff. You get like spanking, especially like over the knee type spanking. And then you get into like sutures, scalpels. I mean, it's kind of more blood play than like traditional sadomasochism, I guess. But that's more the wheelhouse you tend to see, in my humble opinion. What do saline injections do? Like, what is the result? Inflation. It's for like expansion of stuff. So like people will use it for, I don't really know a lot about this, so don't quote me on this, but my understanding is it's used for like injection. Like people will do it in like the mons, or they'll do it on the vulva, they'll do it on breast tissue, they'll do it in the scrotum, the scrotal region, that sort of thing. I'm sure people also inject things elsewhere, but for a kink reason, that's mostly what I've heard of it be. It's basically like temporary body modification because your body reabsorbs the saline. Like, actually, how this works, my dog, not in any sort of a kink way, don't even go there. Like, she was dehydrated because she'd been sick for a couple days. She had like the doggy flu like a month or two ago. And I took her to the doctor because she wasn't getting better. And the vet gave her a saline injection to help her rehydrate because she was like refusing to drink water. And she had like a little, like a camel hump on her back for like, it was probably less than a day. I don't remember how many hours it was because she's very fluffy, so it's hard to tell. But she had like a temporary hump from the saline from it being injected to help her rehydrate. And like you basically, like in a kink context, exploit that same principle of like injecting saline in a way to where it stays on the surface and it like, is creating kind of a bubble essentially of saline under the skin that's reabsorbed by the body eventually. You also have a Pomeranian. That's exciting. I don't know very many people that have Pomeranians, but I'm always excited every single time I see one. Every time it's a joy. Even though I also have one, I'm like, ooh, a Pomeranian. I get excited. Anyone? I want to get more into the sapphic lifestyle, so lesbianism. I don't know why we've like stopped saying the word lesbian. That's a whole other conversation. But unsure how to meet women, because most times I approach women, I get shot down. Is it because I'm pansexual? I mean, is there like a I'm pansexual sticker on your forehead? I mean, there is something there. I think for the entire time I've been on the internet as an adult that's aware of like sexuality, I have heard lesbians have a reputation, like more so than gay men, which is weird because I feel like gay men are actually more exclusionary, but they don't get talked about as much because no one's calling them out for it. But lesbians have more reputation of like, being bi and pan exclusionary and being like, you have to pick, you're not a real lesbian, blah, blah, blah. But, I mean, here's what you do if you want to meet women. Go to a lesbian bar where the lesbians are at. Not every city has one. We have them here in Portland. There's not that many. Honestly, here's where you go. Go to a WNBA game. Go to a WNBA game. That's where you will meet all the sapphic ladies. Who knows what I'm talking about? No, but really, WNBA games, apparently, or any like women's sports, women's soccer, women's basketball, going to a women's sports bar. There's one here in Portland. It's called the Sports Bra. Going to a place where the lesbians hang out. That's explicitly like a lesbian or a sapphic place. And then you know that the other women there like to be approached. And then that will eliminate things. But also, like, being shot down is not necessarily just because they don't know if you're attracted to women or not. It could also be because they're not into you. And I feel like if you are somebody who's used to, you know, being a woman who's dating a man, you're not really used to being rejected because, like, men are just far less likely to outwardly reject people immediately, whereas women are, like, seemingly much more readily able to do that. Roller derby, true. Roller derby. That's a great one. Also an activity you can actually do if you want to sign up for roller derby and meet people that way. Not just like go to a game and watch, but that's definitely a good one too. I saw a girl wearing a gay and tired t-shirt the other day, and she ended up making out with a girl, so it does work sometimes. There you go. Like, maybe just need to be more obvious with it. Have a pin on a backpack, on your purse. Wear a shirt that's the colors of the lesbian pride flag. Listen, there's options here. There's options. But I mean, honestly, like, and this is, if you want to meet people not in real life, like, I know that there's like a dating app called Her that I've never used, but that's like an option. I've heard people can use Grindr. That seems, I'm scared. I don't want to use Grindr, but some people do that. I found, I mean, not to blow up anybody's spot, I guess, but like, there's a lot of queer ladies on Hinge. That's all. I'll say that. Lots of queer ladies on Hinge. I feel like I don't know. I was gonna go for a sports analogy and then I bailed because I'm not good at sports. But a relatively high success percentage getting returned interest and messages on Hinge with other ladies, you know, compared to other dating apps. I don't know why that is. Maybe that's just where I live, but like, I feel like most other websites is like less common. You're actually going to get a response. So that's what I would look for. Hinge. I'm doing a review soon of all the different like major dating apps, but Hinge I find is like, if you're not on a strictly lesbian dating app, that's like a good one to meet the sapphic people on. Yep, roller derby is an excellent social thing. Yep, like-minded women and others, plus just great exercise. Also, if you're kinky, definitely an overlap there as well, for sure. Rock climbing, also great. Lots of bi and sapphic ladies love rock climbing. I don't get it. I am too afraid of heights to go rock climbing, but it is a thing. Also, pole dancing is good too. The dance classes, I feel like that's like a whole other untapped thing. I feel like we haven't reckoned as a society with like understanding how many people with a dance background are gay. Like JoJo Siwa, like, hello, it happens. People don't expect it. People for some reason assume that men who do dance are gay and women that do dance are straight, and it doesn't make any sense to me, but that's what happens. I don't know anything about sports ball. I did grow up watching football. I did play quite a lot of sports when I was growing up, but I don't remember any of the rules because I don't watch sports anymore. If you live in the cities of New York, Boston, Minneapolis, Ottawa, Toronto, and Montreal, you can also consider possibly going to I didn't realize there's a women's hockey league. Oh, okay. It says PWHL. What is the P? What is the P in the PWHL? Oh, professional. Professional, of course. They don't specify that for the men's league, though, do they? Anyways, there you go. Also, women love hockey, I guess. Women love stuff. Women love to do things. Women, they be shopping, you know? They be shopping and they be watching sports games. I don't really know. Well, rugby, maybe if you're like Australian. I don't know if you're. I don't actually know. Is rugby popular? Well, there's women's rugby, isn't there? Listen, be careful. Be careful if you wanna approach a rugby lady. It's, you know, I don't know. I'd be intimidated. I'd be worried about it. But great question. Good question. Okay. Hopefully we have we've assisted in an answer to that question, because it is meeting people is hard sometimes. But really, it comes down to just like finding activities that you enjoy doing and then going out and doing them, or finding places where the people you are interested in would gather. I know what the NHL is. I know that that's the National Hockey League, but I was confused and went, did they have a professional in there? Why do we got to specify? Is there like a non-professional women's hockey league? Like, was it already like copyrighted somewhere? Maybe. I don't know. Been watching your videos for a few months now. Thank you, Lawson. There's nothing common about common sense. That has been said. People have said that. I'm married to a gender fluid guy that comes across very male, and I'm transparent and I'm in a poly relationship. Oh, yes, Morgan. That there are a lot of sapphic women that are very, I think, understandably to an extent, turned off from dating women who are in romantic relationships with people that they perceive as cis men. Some of them, and maybe the ones who are not worth dating, will think, oh, well, your partner is a gender fluid guy, but they still use he, him pronouns and you're married. So, like, if they're not polyamorous, what they're looking at is, I have this potential person I could date who I can never get married to, who is already, like, in a long-term intimate partnership with somebody that I perceive as a man. And so a lot of women are not really going to be, like, super enthusiastic about signing up for that, for better or for worse, especially if they are monogamous. Other people who are polyamorous, they're going to be more open to it because they're likely married or in other long-term partnerships themselves. So it's not like, or they understand that even if they're dating you, they also have options to date other people. I'm not sure if you ran the numbers, what percentage of women, like gay women or bi women, are polyamorous, like how much that compares to like heterosexual people, if there's like a really big difference there. But I've seen a lot, like honestly, a lot of the most like hateful shit I see about polyamory are from like lesbian women. Let's be fucking like for real. Like I saw, like I literally today, before I started to stream, maybe like 3:34, I saw a tweet from somebody. And again, I don't know what's happening with my Twitter account. I'm telling it to not show me this stuff. I'm saying I'm not interested in it. It keeps showing me more of this goddamn bullshit. But for somebody I've never seen a tweet from before, somebody I don't follow, I saw a tweet that was something along the lines of, that had like a bunch of engagement, like a couple thousand likes. It was somebody who basically said like, why are cishet polyamorous people literally the worst? And then somebody responded to that, it's because they're trying to pretend to have queer relationships without actually being queer. And I just wanted to blast myself into the sun in Minecraft. First of all, a lot of the women that you perceive as being in cishet polyamorous relationships are not actually cishet. Very, very many of them are not binary. Very, very many of them are actually bi or pan. Very many of the men are as well. But you just went, oh, a man and a woman dating in some configuration, that's cishet. There we go. And also, I've never heard anyone ever say, in at least a serious way, that being polyamorous makes you queer, or that they're like, are we saying that queer relationships are inherently like multi-partnered? Like what about dating multiple people means you're trying to be like in a queer relationship? I don't listen, I haven't read the full rule book, but I don't think there's anything in the queer handbook that says like, anyone who is queer must date more than one person at a time. This is the true queer way. Like, that's never been anything I've heard before. So I don't know where they got off saying that, but there is a lot of very, very, very strong negative reactions to people that are perceived as cishet in lesbian spaces that are polyamorous. So that's not entirely shocking. You usually have to find somebody who's like, honestly, like it's, I mean, I don't know very many people that have success as like bi or pan women who are partnered with men, like dating a lesbian woman, like a strictly lesbian woman in a polyamorous way, because there's just, I find that there's like a lot of tension there oftentimes that's alleviated with somebody that has more of an understanding the way that a lot more like bi or pan women do. But yeah. Twitter trolls people who have more open tendencies. I get more right-wing news after blocking right-wing people. That's what I swear is happening. I swear I tell them to show me less of it and they show me more. It's like, why are you bratting at me, Twitter? Why are you bratting at me? What did I do to deserve this? Yeah, I've noticed some lesbians seem to be really bi and transphobic too. Oh, the transphobia as well. That's a whole other thing. Yeah, Yeah, I think some of them are what they would call gold star lesbians, and it seems very similar to the TERF rhetoric. Oh, there is I place value in being a gold star lesbian, and the TERF, the Venn diagram there, Kamala Harris would be fascinated by. She would love that Venn diagram. But no, I just, yeah, I've seen that. There's a lot, and again, something that gay men also very much do as well. Like, I've never heard of a lesbian club doing physical genital inspections, but I have heard that about gay men's clubs multiple times before. But lesbian women are, like, in certain circles, some of them, the rad feminine varieties, are very, like, they have a very strict view of what genitalia is acceptable, and are very transphobic, and oftentimes they don't believe that, like, transphobes are, like, well, they don't think that they're transphobic, but they, like, align with transphobic beliefs, which is so fucking funny, because, like, conservative men don't think lesbianism is real. What are you doing? Like, literally this week, I have seen, like, either news articles or tweets or, like, viral posts somewhere of a conservative man being, like, lesbian, like, fucking Tim Pool, I think, has said this. Like, very, like, mainstream figures of the alt-right and the far-right say that, like, lesbianism isn't real and that women, like, actually are always attracted to men. They just don't always want to admit it because they're, like, trying to feel special. So, like, why are you aligning yourselves with these people who literally don't think your sexual orientation even actually exists and, like, would 100% try to, like, forcibly marry you to a man to try and, like, fix you? What are we doing, people? Again, I ask, what are we doing? What are we doing? Yeah, genital inspection. Like, when I say genital inspections, I mean literally what people are afraid of happening at TSA actually happening on a consistent basis. Like, they are fondling your genitals. They are trying to figure out, to say it in a YouTube-friendly way, whether or not you have an innie or an outie. Heaven forbid if you have some combo of both, because that shit is not allowed. They don't even know how to mentally process that, I don't think. That was not on the flyer they were given. But yeah, that's a thing that used to happen. It's not great. Not great. With Twitter and other apps like it, they look for engagement, so you're interacting with the post, even just to say, don't show me this, counts as engagement. Well, but that's not, like, the best way to train the app is to close it. Well, first of all, I'm not on the app, I'm on the browser version, so, like, I can't just close the app. But if I'm just clicking on a tweet and not telling it to, like, I'm not interested in this, don't show me more of this, then all I'm doing is clicking on a tweet and looking at it, or, like, having, like, I feel like it's more nuanced than that, and, like, I feel like it shouldn't be my fault that I'm, like, oh, well, don't you know that the thing you're trying to do to, like, make it show you things less is actually going to do the opposite? Like, no, because that's not how it works on any other fucking app. Like, YouTube doesn't work that way. Instagram doesn't work that way. Like, TikTok doesn't work that way. Any other app I've been on, like with YouTube or with Instagram, when I tell it enough times I don't want to see something, I stop seeing it. Like, with the weird exception of, like, one thing on YouTube, which is, like, for a while there, it just kept showing me Eugenia Kunu videos in search results, no matter what I was searching for, which I feel like was possibly a bug. It, like, normally just works. So I don't think it's me. And, like, also, I do social media for a living, so I'd like to think I know how, like, engagement works. And, like, yeah, I know that apps run off of, like, they don't care if engagement is negative or positive. They care about keeping your eyeballs on the fucking ads as long as possible. So if you don't like it or you do like it, it's not really their problem. But they should have a basic functionality that is, I don't want to see this anymore, because I don't want to see every trad wife post. I don't want to, I'm seeing, like, pro shipper content. Why am I seeing anti-ship versus pro ship content? I don't know. I don't engage in fandom stuff on Twitter. But yeah, that's my confusion. And I guess I feel like I'm being blamed. And I feel like that's deeply unfair because I'm using the only tool I have available to me. And I'm sorry, I don't think closing my browser window whenever I see a tweet I don't like is actually going to, like, solve the problem. Because what Twitter's going to see is, like, oh, they open Twitter and, like, close it. It's not giving them any particular information about anything. I feel like that's not actually helpful. It's just going to make them more confused, more desperate to try and get my attention. I am very sick of tradwife content. Like, it's just, I feel like we've reached the peak of potential tradwife discourse, and hopefully it'll taper off after this. Or maybe it won't. I don't know. But anyways, oh my gosh, okay. So we got 45 minutes. Let's get going. I have a hard time wrapping my head around how people feel they're justified in passing such harsh judgment on others and demanding their ways the correct way. I mean, people feel secure when they put on other people and get to say, I told you so. It's just a human thing people do. Okay, my question is about how your friends might just be more vanilla types. Is there a follow-up to that? Is that just the question? I don't see a part 2. How your friends might be more vanilla types. I mean, yeah, your friends can be more vanilla than you. I don't really know how to answer that. Like, yeah, sometimes you can have, I know lots of people have vanilla friends and have kinky friends, and sometimes they overlap and sometimes they don't. It really just depends on the person and their friends, because some people are like, honestly, I was almost too comfortable hearing about other people's kink experiences, and other folks are like want to be very separate and they don't want to hear about it. It's awkward and uncomfortable, but it, you know, especially if you've had friends for a long time, like you've known them for years and years, it's like not really a problem. Yeah, Yabo, what the heck? What the heck? Oh, burglary. Yeah, totally different. Yeah. Excuse me, I temporarily confused kidnapping and burglary, even though I definitely know the difference between the two in actual reality. Loved your kink scene video, especially the inclusion of ASMR. I'm not always sure how to integrate it, but always want to. Yeah. Oh, yeah. ASMR. Very popular these days. Very popular. Someone answered my top-bottom question. I saw it on screen, but don't see it anywhere here. What other chats are being aggregated? Sorry for the off-topic questions. Oh, no. The only thing it's just YouTube. It's just the YouTube chat, and that's it. There seems like there's a pretty big delay. At first there is, but like right now it should be more or less cut up. But there's also a delay between like YouTube and stuff. I don't have control over that though. But there is an actual YouTube chat that's separate from it that you see everything keeps up to date immediately. Is it just me, or is there an abundance of bottoms and not as many tops? If so, why do you suppose it is in your opinion? I mean, this is not just even a like, this is, you're right, basically. You are right. There is many, many more submissives and bottoms than doms and tops. This is something that we actually have survey data to support. Very many more people identify as subs or bottoms than people who identify as doms and tops. This is something that's been known about for quite a while. It's not just anecdotal. It is like an actual phenomenon. I'm not sure, because like what causes someone to be vanilla or kinky or a top or a bottom or a switch is so multifaceted. It's hard to pin it down to one potential reason or even a set of reasons. In my estimation, there's a couple things going on. I think people feel more comfortable oftentimes being the receiver of activities, and especially because being a bottom or being a submissive means essentially playing what amounts to like the victim role or somebody who's having something inflicted upon them. Mentally, it's easier to process that than being the perpetrator or being the victimizer. So I think that's one aspect of it. I think generally people see bottoming and submission as like being a way to receive sensation. And so you're getting something from your partner. You're getting a stimulus that's like physical, tactile, on your body, oftentimes for a lot of people involving genitalia, like more sexual stimulation. And so that has a draw to it. Whereas when you're topping or doming, the pleasure connection you get from it is a little bit more indirect, is a little bit more mental. And so I think more people are probably more likely to be able to enjoy diverse physical sensations that are like, you know, we like getting massages, but what if we also liked, you know, somebody, I don't know, spanking us at the same time? Like there's already sort of a network, a neural network built up around like enjoying physical touch in a social context from other people, whether that be like head scratches, back scratches, massages, that kind of pro-social physical contact. Whereas the mental enjoyment of kink is a little bit, you got to take a few more steps to be able to get there. And that tends to be more what doming and topping is about, is like either like psychological arousal or more like mental pleasure, or like getting into a flow state or something like that. And I think there's probably an element of like gender at play here as well, if we're talking about heterosexual kink. But those are probably the reasons I would say that it's the reason why there is more of a gap there. But yeah, that's probably, I'm trying to think of anything else I'd say that's contributing to that, but that's what I can think of. What are you doing, dog? Hey, don't be gross, you're on camera. You're so cute, but you're such a little gremlin. You're my little gremlin. Yeah. Yeah, I normally do like a full face of makeup, but I don't for live streams because I can't be bothered. So I normally just pop on some eyeliner and I call it a day. Okay, looking for more questions. Talking about vitamins and my dog. ASMR. What's happening with the chat tonight? Hopefully we can get it sorted quickly. That was just from the Streamlabs thing. I think that was like I think I'm going to try to like reconnect my Streamlabs and my YouTube. It could just have just been that, but I don't think it was YouTube, as far as I can tell. Sky asks, do you have any advice for overcoming shame around being a little and being able to call my partner daddy? I have a lot of anxiety and self-esteem issues with it. Oh, yeah. So I do have a video talking about dealing with guilt and shame, and my advice, though that is more focused on doms and tops, my advice is still more or less the same for subs and bottoms that are dealing with guilt and shame. So step one to dealing with shame is like identifying the emotion, identifying how intense it is, and like the thoughts and beliefs you have around that shame. So you are feeling ashamed of calling your partner daddy, but why is that? Is that because it feels uncomfortable, because you're worried about offending people, because you're worried about losing people? Okay, actually, you know what we're gonna do? We're getting out the book. We're getting out the book, doggo. While I'm at it, I'm gonna turn up the fan here for a second. The ye olde DBT book, the old tried and true. This is the 200s. Yep, emotions. Let's go to shame, envy, fear. Boppity boppity bop. Shame. This is honestly, shame is like the biggest, densest page, because shame is a very complicated mental experience. So actually, I'm gonna turn down the fan here. I think it's a little too loud. Okay, so we have shame. This is page 222, emotional regulation handout 6. If you want to Google emotional regulation handout 6 DBT, you can probably find a copy of this on the internet. But we think about what are the prompting events for shame, right? So like It could be exposure to a very private aspect of yourself, having emotions or experiences that have been invalidated, being reminded of something wrong, immoral, or shameful you did in the past, being rejected or criticized for something you expected praise for, being rejected by people you care about, having others find out that you've done something wrong. That whole wheelhouse can be things that cause shame. So you might feel like if I call my partner daddy, I feel shame because I am afraid of being rejected by people I care about, or other people making fun of me and laughing at me, or being criticized, or doing something wrong that means I'm doing something immoral that other people might judge me for. So that's sort of like, okay, those are the feelings that maybe are contributing to us having a sensation of shame. When we look at what is actually happening here, you are calling your partner daddy, I'm assuming in a private environment, in a relationship where it's negotiated and it's wanted, and you know what you mean by it, they know what you mean by it, the context is fully there. And there's not really a reason to actually be ashamed of that because you're not doing anything wrong. You're not doing anything that's immoral. You're doing something that is consensual and negotiated and that both of you want to be able to do. And essentially what you do, to kind of skip ahead here, if you want to deal with shame, what do we do when we want to deal with shame? The thing I was just describing is called check the facts. Basically go through, we just describe what the emotion is, what prompted the emotion to come up, what are your thoughts and feelings and beliefs going into that experience, are you assuming something bad is going to happen, and then does the intensity of that emotion fit the facts? And we're going to assume that, I mean, to a certain extent, so this is the thing with shame, right? Like, you might, because of the fact it's a Kate thing, you might actually be, to a certain extent, validated in feeling shame, although feelings are always valid, but like, you know, it might be justified to feel shame because you could end up being rejected by somebody you care about if they find out that you called your partner daddy, like your parents or your family, coworkers. They might be like, oh, that's like not great. But you don't necessarily want to act on it to the extent that it's like keeping you from doing behavior that you actually want to engage in. So what we do instead is we say, does it fit the facts? Not really, because it's out of scope. Is acting on the emotion effective? No, I don't think it is. So we don't act on the emotional urge, which with shame, it's probably telling you, don't do the thing. Don't say the word. Don't use that phrase, because that's going to have bad outcomes for us. So what we can do is we can either change our thoughts to fit the facts, or we can do opposite action. And I like doing opposite action because I feel like that's like the easiest one for me to be able to talk about it in this particular setting. So we go, this is emotional regulation handout 11, by the way. We go to shame, and then we get sort of a rough idea of what to do opposite actions for shame. And the main thing that we do, I want to show you on camera, this is the main thing we do. We're experiencing shame. Is we do the opposite actions. What does that say? Make public your personal characteristics or your behavior with people who won't reject you. Repeat the behavior that sets off shame over and over and over again. What does this mean? Call your partner daddy a lot. Talk about it in a safe space. Talk about it in a Discord chat. Talk about it at a munch. Talk about it in this chat. Do whatever, you know, because we're not going to reject you because like 20% of us probably have a daddy kink. I don't know. But what you do, find a safe place. And by public, I don't mean the grocery store. By public, I mean in a kink venue, in a dungeon, in a community space, online, real life, whatever. So that way you don't have to be afraid of being rejected, or in the privacy of your own home. And then you just repeat it over and over again. I would maybe, if just saying the word is too much for you right now, I wouldn't necessarily go immediately into calling your partner daddy left, right, and center. But you can text it. You can write it on our whiteboard. You can do little craft projects where you like make something where you're, you know, you put daddy in like glitter, you know, glitter glue letters or something. You know, you can do things like that where you're expressing your desire to say this word, and you're just sort of trying, well, essentially what you're trying to do is you're trying to show your body that you can do the behavior that causes shame without the thing that your body is afraid of and your mind is afraid of actually happening. Because if you're afraid of being rejected, but then you talk about daddy this and daddy that and daddy, like, 100 times and nothing bad ever happens, your body and mind are going to readjust and be like, oh, maybe we don't have to be so afraid of this. Eventually, over time, that'll start to happen. So that could be also like saying it to yourself out loud in a car, saying it out loud to yourself in the shower, you know, talking about it with your partner just in like a private conversation at home. Like, find ways to say the word and say the phrase over and over again until it starts to be something that doesn't bring up quite as much anxiety. And when you're talking about it, when you're using it, think about your body language and how that's contributing to the way that you're feeling. Because if you're like very, you know, sheepishly in the corner, you know, hunched over, like whispering daddy, like that's a body language that promotes the feeling of shame. Because you're communicating to yourself that you like have a reason to try and hide this. Whereas, you know, we have your chin up and your shoulders back and you're saying it loudly and proudly, then you're communicating with a body posture of confidence and ease and not with like shame and hiding and trying to conceal, essentially. And then essentially that's more or less, and that's like the steps for if it's not justified by the facts and it's not effective, or it's not effective to act on. But I would say, you know, this is a case-by-case thing. Like, you may not want to call your partner daddy, like the restaurant, because you don't want somebody to overhear and then tell your parents because it's a small town. Like, there are circumstances where it's like, yeah, it's legit to feel shame, and maybe it's okay to act in line with that emotion, because, like, you know, if you know that the diner you're going to is owned by a family member, you may not want them to overhear you calling your partner daddy. So that's what I would think about. That's DBT, emotional regulation handout. That's like, I always go back to that whenever I talk about shame and guilt, because I really do feel like that's like the clearest picture for dealing with guilt is like, and with shame too, is like looking at the facts, thinking about why you feel shame and why you feel guilt, thinking about it in the context of what you're actually experiencing, find a safe place to do it in, talk about it, do the activity that brings up guilt and shame, and just do it over again. Do it over and over again until you don't feel as sensitive about it, essentially. That is super helpful. I have so many friends in my local community who have reassured me and talked to me about it, which has helped a lot. Yeah, I mean, if you have people in your local community that you can just be like, hey, so I'm trying to feel less guilty or ashamed of saying the word daddy, and this might sound like kind of a weird request, but like, do you mind if we have a conversation where I refer to my partner as daddy, and then I just kind of sprinkle it in there a lot and just see how it feels, and like hopefully they'll be willing to talk to you through that and like reassure you that it's okay and like not have a disgusted reaction to it. Yeah. Oh my gosh! Evie's the reason that I changed therapists to one who uses DBT in her therapy, and why I ended up buying the DBT handbook. It has changed my life. Thank you. You are so welcome. I am so glad to hear that. I think DBT, it's marketed mainly for people with borderline personality disorder, but especially the little bits like that of like emotional regulation are so helpful, because I think even if you're not somebody who has, you know, really extreme emotional intensity, you can still be somebody that struggles with guilt and shame. And a lot of the emotional advice that we give people kind of boils down to like, well, have you tried just being happy? Have you tried smiling more? And it's like, I think it's helpful when you have a system you can take step by step to be like, all right, this is what we're going to do. And even like, I'm still learning this, right? Like, I'm not an expert at this. This is just kind of like, I'm giving you some very, very basic tools to know how to use, essentially, and a framework to think about it in. I'd always recommend with this, you know, DBT, as you can see, it's a very big book. It's several hundred pages. I always recommend doing it with a therapist. There's group options for DBT that are like, you could, for in some places, you could do it for like $25, $50 for a group session. And I think that's a really wonderful resource. You can do the book as well, but I think it's easier when you have a therapist to guide you through quite a bit of it. But the emotional regulation part of it is very helpful. There's a book. Oh, it's like emotional, like, regulation for high conflict couples or something, and it's like very similar to that section where it's about like how to do emotional regulation when you are in a relationship that has a high degree of like volatility or arguments in it. I don't have an affiliate link with Amazon, but I don't know, maybe I should, I guess. I recommend it a lot, actually, but this is just I'll show the book again. It's like, if you look up DBT skills, this is the book, DBT skills, training, handout, and worksheets. You can find a lot of these online, so if you, I think it was almost, I'm usually in like the 200s are the emotional stuff. But if you look out for emotional regulation handout 6 through like 11 or 12. Yeah, look for like emotional regulation handouts 6 through 12. A lot of them are online. And then there's also emotional. If you want like the cheat sheet, I would look for this one. This is emotional regulation handout 13. This is kind of like the guide, the quickie guide for all the major stuff. So like and then there's one more page of it. I think it's the guilt and shame is on the last one, yeah. So like it's more deep than this, but you can see for like this is the guilt and shame portion here. You will be rejected by a very important person or group if characteristics of yourself or your behavior are made public, and then this is what you can do to act opposite to the emotional urge, which is the emotional urge, right? Is like hiding, not doing the behavior, concealing it, yada yada. And then if you're acting on the emotion urge to problem solve or to avoid when there is a justified emotion, because like, hey, like sometimes you are going to be in group scenarios or in environments where you will actually be rejected, and it is valid and justified to feel shame. So there you go. I feel like Evie's voice matches her look, if that makes sense, both with and without makeup. Thank you. I'm glad. I do find it funny when somebody looks super different from their voice, like when those are out of sync. If only you could see my dog. My dog, very fluffy. She's brown and black and gray, and she has very long, soft hair, and she has a short face and a big fluffy tail. And she has, I call them Grinch feet. She has like long fur on her paws, like how they draw the Grinch and how the Grinch stole Christmas. And she's like 90% fluff. If you actually hold her, she's much skinnier than she actually seems from the outside. And it's delightful. And she's very calm and quiet. And she has wistful eyes. It's my dog. Yeah, I'm trying to think if there's anything else with shame I want to share before I wrap up that. But yeah, it's very, very common. And I found like the most success I've usually had is like for somebody dealing with guilt and shame is to find a supportive group that you can talk about things with, and then just repeating it over and over again. That genuinely really does help. As far as I know, I don't change them. I mean, any more than anyone that records themselves in a video changes their voice. I don't intentionally change my voice, but I'm sure it happens to a certain extent. Okay, I think I answered that question from Morgan. Would you mind saying where you're from originally? I've not heard many people use the phrase, what the Sam Hill? I'm from all over. I don't really have like a particular home base I'm from. I moved around a lot as a kid. So I lived in the Southeast, lived in the South, I lived in the Midwest, I lived in the West Coast, lived on the East Coast. I'm not really from anywhere in particular. So I have kind of a random collection of phrases that I've built up over the years. I'm not sure. I think that one I probably got from like, I don't even know where I picked that up from. I can't say for sure. Maybe the Southeast, but I couldn't pinpoint it to anything in particular. You've been in Kink for a while. How have you seen gender expansion, humanity realizing that gender isn't a binary, affect the kink sphere? What are some proper things to call a non-binary dom or top? So it's actually funny you bring that up because I have a video that I filmed earlier this week where I talk about how the kink scene has changed in the last about 10 years. I haven't fully been in the scene for 10 years yet, but in the last 9 years, how things have changed. And I've definitely seen, especially in how people educate about kink, there being a lot more awareness of gender diversity. Like, it used to be when people wrote books about the kink world, many people would say stuff like, you know, oh, well, like, all submissives are women, or like all dominants are men, or just like assume that from the outset. And then in the book, when they're talking about dominance in general, they'll use he pronouns, and then for submissives, they'll use she pronouns, even if they're talking in like a general or theoretical way, not about a specific person. And that was the default writing style for many years, probably even decades. And it's only been in the last, like, I'd say 10 years that I've really seen a concrete, comprehensive effort to use gender-neutral pronouns across the board. Because before, the excuse would just be like, well, but we're writing this from our perspective, and like, we're a male master and like a female submissive, and so like, of course we're using these pronouns because that's our experience. But now we have a broader understanding of who's drawn to kink, and so that's kind of like less acceptable as an excuse, because you're not really writing a book about your story. You're writing a book about how to do kink, and you are going to have people that come in with different relationship styles, people that, you know, are women with dominant women, with men that have dominant men, with non-binary people, with all kinds of combinations. So that I've definitely seen be a change as well. But I want to be realistic at the same time, because it's not necessarily the case that it's become perfect and no one ever makes any mistakes and there's no more, you know, cis normativity over everything. Like, it is still a thing. Like, I even recently know about incidences where people have gone to events and like not had their pronouns respected by people of some level of repute in the community, and, you know, people still struggling with, you know, how to handle like pronouns in a kink space. So there are definitely people that are, you know, sort of, the kink community is not just a liberal safe haven of, you know, one cohesive ideology. You get all different people, all different backgrounds, and there are a number of people that are in the kink community and in the scene that are very conservative, that have very conservative views about gender, and are not down with like they, them pronouns, okay? So I don't want to make it sound like, oh, it's like perfect, nothing ever happens, don't worry about it, but I think it has gotten better over the last couple of years. Like, it just is more inclusive, and we're still having conversations about the best way to make that happen, but it is moving in that general way, despite maybe what some people wish would happen. As far as what are some proper things to call a non-binary dom or top, I mean, like, dom, top, I mean, like, I've heard people say things like, if you're getting into like the more traditionally gendered terms, like, you know, let's say like princess or like king or goddess or something, you know, like royal, or, you know, most holy on high, or things like that. But there's like, I think the ones that people usually struggle with are like, you know, miss, ma'am, sir, that kind of flavor of honorific. And I've heard people say things like mix, like mixtress. I know quite a few people that go by mix something. So that's an option. There's mix instead of miss or sir. I actually know someone who, well, okay, I'm not going to tell that story because that's not really mine to tell. But I do know people that have made decisions about what gender to present as kink spaces to make sure that they are given, you know, sir versus ma'am properly. But yeah, I see mix is probably a common one I see quite a bit. And mistress and master are a little harder. I'd say sort of master is more likely to be sort of implicitly non-gendered, but there is still like a gendered connotation there too, and also other connotations that people are not always a fan of. But usually it's sir and ma'am and mistress that people have trouble with. But you can also do like mixtress, that I've also seen too. I've also heard that one. But if you're just wondering, like, in general, what to call someone you don't know that's not part of the gender binary, you know, you have to ask them and figure out what they want. Because, like, I know people that only ever want to be called by a name and never by a pronoun. I know people that use its pronouns, people who use they pronouns, people who use neo pronouns, people that are non-binary but then still use terms like daddy or master or mistress, or they like being called ma'am. Like, you can't really assume anything. Like, I actually know quite a few people that are trans and gender expansive, maybe, if we want to call it that, who will use gender terms because they find it's funny to play around with the expectation of like what a daddy or a mommy is supposed to be like. But you can also like caregiver, there's parent, instead of saying mommy or daddy, that's one of the options. Or like, on the submissive side, right, we have like, pet and little as opposed to like, little girl or things like that. Oh, captain. Yeah, captain's also a good one. I see quite a few people that have gone by captain before as well. Yeah, captain, my captain, please ruin me. I think that's how that poem goes, right? Yeah, I think I'm remembering that from English class correctly. Yeah. This is a good opportunity to brainstorm honorifics. Well, like, there's so many. I've seen multiple blog posts that are like non-binary honorifics for kink. Like, this isn't like a new idea by any. This is not the first time this has come up. There's a post from 8 years ago in Genderqueer asking about titles. So like, your grace, your majesty, commander, captain, boss, reverend, your honor, your highness. I've heard mastress as well before. I know somebody who goes by mastress. Let's see, is there anything else in here? Owner, officer. There's a Zipper magazine article that they did like really recently that has like almost 100 of them. But it's not like it's just any honorific. It goes for any role you'd want to use it for, right? There's divine. I like that one. Creature, consul, comrade. You want to go that route. Coach, chief, commander, we already said. Maestro, although the O ending has sort of an implied gender there because it's in Italian, but I think you could do maestra. I think you could do do an E sound at the end as opposed to an O, and that'd be more gender neutral. Liege, keeper, instructor, alpha, technically gender neutral. Alpha, gender neutral. So keep that in mind when somebody says they're an alpha. They could be genderqueer. You don't necessarily know. Sergeant or sarge, protector, teacher, supreme leader, that's a good one. There's also God X, as in like goddess, but like with an X instead of a SS ending. For researching honorifics, I got many ideas from reading erotica, hentai games with text, etc. I mean, listen, you get inspiration in all different kinds of places. If they're younger than you, can you call them champ? Absolutely. Absolutely. As we're talking more about dom and top names, but yeah, go for it. Call them champ if you feel like it. As an MGS fan, I use boss. Yeah, that's a good one. Oh, sovereign. Yeah, I've heard sovereign a couple times before. People like that. Beast. That's a good one if you're more into primal play. Some of these are so good. Yeah, I'll link this is from Zipper magazine. There's other options that are as for doms and tops. There's some switch friendly and bottom and submissive friendly terms in here as well. Like my dear, technically not gendered. You can call your partner my dear and have it be a thing that's not about, you can call me dear and like they can still be your dominant, My uncle was in town last night and asked if I wanted to hang out or swim at the pool at his hotel, which is super nice, but I said I was busy with lady friends and said the two of us both come down to swim. I honestly know he didn't mean it in a weird way and texted me later apologizing for coming off as creepy. He's neurodivergent. Oh, I was going to say this sounds like a neurodivergent thing. And pretty eccentric, and I didn't take it that way. I feel like I need a break from him, though. He has a lot of energy and he's very draining, especially when he's so out of touch with social norms. What do? I mean, I think, it's hard because, if he's neurodivergent, like, that is his brain. And he's, like, as you've already pointed out, like, he apologized for it. But I think last time we talked about setting up boundaries with this same person, but I think it's totally valid to want to break from family members that are being draining to you, because you have to take care of yourself first. And like, if you want to have positive interactions with this person, you're not going to be able to do it when your social tank is empty. You got to do it at a time when you're like feeling like you actually want it to happen, because you're trying to make it happen, but you're not actually like looking forward to it, and you're doing it out of obligation. You're not really going to have a good time no matter what you try to do. So I think it's totally, I would just say, I'd be very reassuring, but I'd be direct, because I think he probably will appreciate it. I would say something like, hey, uncle, thanks for apologizing after last night. I know you didn't mean it in a weird way, but I appreciate you reaching out anyways and clarifying. That was really helpful. And in the future, if I say that I am busy with somebody, please take that as a no, that I'm not interested in seeing you because I have other obligations and I have people I want to see. It's not because I don't want to see you at all. It's not because I don't love you or like you, but I am only interested in socializing with, like, if I'm socializing with this person, I want to be with this person. And I want to give them my full attention, which I hope you can understand. Is that like the sandwich thing we talked about, right? It's that dear man skill of like, you're describing what's happening, and then you're explaining what your feelings are, and then you're putting in an ask of what you want them to do in the future. You're going through that whole process of like the whole acronym of dear man. Another DBT skill. Do I have the dear man thing? That's like way at the beginning of the book, I think. I don't really have that one saved on my computer. I actually don't have that one normally as something in a book, but not really that important. The dear man skill is basically something you can do to help communicate to people in a way that is empathetic, but is still communicating your point and is aware of what they're doing. And then you can say, hey, they also say for you too, right? Like, hey, in the future, I'm also going to be more clear that I may not be available to hang out, and actually say that directly, and hopefully you can hear that. And if we can do that, I'll feel more comfortable being able to say yes to opportunities to hang out when it feels like a good thing for both of us to be able to do. That's like the kind of vibe I would go for. It's like, hey, I want this to happen. I'm also going to do this. So it's not only just on them. You're also working on it too. And you're setting up guidelines for like, okay, now you know that when I'm saying yes, I mean yes, and I actually do want to see you. It's not because I don't want to see you at all. It's just like, you're an adult. You have other things you're doing. You have other people that you want to see. It's okay. That's part of life. Would you be able to link the article about trauma from earlier? Oh, yeah. It was 2 of them. No problem. One of them is from the CPTSD Foundation, and then other one is from Psychology Today. I just put both of the links in the chat. And just in case it doesn't work. So the first one is how complex PTSD can affect intimate relationships. That's the one on Psychology Today. And then the one from the foundation is called The Difficult Road to Intimacy, Living with Complex PTSD by Shirley Davis. So if you want to look those up, there you go. I have a friend who calls her SO pal as a term of endearment. That's so funny. What's up, pal? That's so funny to me. I love that. Yeah, you're welcome. No problem. Okay, great. Let's do some more questions. Hopefully we have time for a couple more in here. CGL is a very common kink to have you experience trauma, though not always, but it can be very helpful as long as it's consensual. True. Exactly. I'm a little primarily because I had to grow up super fast as a kid. Yep, it's about being able to have those experiences that you didn't get to have for a lot of folks. Absolutely. Okay, that level of control over similar situations sounds eerily similar to what I do once I'm comfortable in a relationship with my minor kinks, and I'm very upfront about my trauma going into things. Why can't I like people's... if you're a viewer, can you like people's super chats? Because I apparently cannot like them. Also, apparently other people can respond to super chats now? That's cool. I have a lot of trauma around childbirth and breeding because of how people view child-free people. And last year, my dad, oh my God, I'm not going to read the rest of that, tried to do something to himself over a lot of stuff, including not being a granddad. Just like, get a dog. I have a degree of empathy. Like, if you have a way you visualize your life going, I understand being disappointed in that. What you absolutely do not do is like guilt people and threaten things because you're disappointed they didn't like follow the path you designed for them. Like, get over it, get a dog, take up another hobby. Like, what are you gonna do? Yeah, I think that's very, very valid to have trauma around that. That's very understandable, especially like with everything going on top of that. If you're in America and the current political landscape, like, bad vibes for sure. Super common in PTSD, especially when lack of agency is involved. Yep. Even with CNC, definitely discuss limits. Fair point, especially if there's a blanket statement, i.e., like certain kinds of torture. One person's idea can be totally different from your own. Exactly, yeah. Whenever you're talking about CNC, even more so than other kinks, it really pays to be extremely detailed. Like, not just being like, I want to do a caning, but like where you want to do the caning, for how long, level of intensity, what type of cane, what emotional experience you want to have. Like, really make sure you're being super, super thorough with it, because that's gonna help you have a better experience, even if you have to do more work up front. Thank you for the in-depth response. I really appreciate it, and definitely have some thinking and talking to someone about it professionally, as I've done therapy before but dodged on the main issue. I mean, yeah, therapy is only as helpful as you let it be, and I think it's very common if you've had a trauma experience to be like, I'm going to talk about all of this, and then I'm not going to talk about the little core in the middle, because like that's a really big thing. Like, yeah, very much a thing that can happen. And I do think that certain types of therapy are like, it depends on your therapist's attitude as well. Like, some of them are going to be like, I can identify that you are not talking about something, and we're going to poke at it until we get to what it is. And other therapists do not have that kind of approach at all, and they're just very hands off, and they're going to let you steer the session wherever it goes. And if you want to talk about it eventually, you can. But I think it's good to work out whatever that main issue is, or at least bring it into the fore at a certain point. I will say a lot of the California scenes aren't super sexual, though San Francisco may be a bit more. Yeah, my experience with SF seemed more or less the same as what I experienced in Seattle. Like, it wasn't that different. Like, there were some elements of sexuality, but it was not the default. Also, hi, Lexi. I didn't see you came in. Hello. I see that some functions take more time to work on desktop than mobile. I don't know what that means. I don't know, complain to YouTube. I don't think I have anything I can do about that. I recently went to a munch at a roller skating rink. That was pretty fun. That does sound like a fun time. I love that. I ran pickleball for the Parks and Rec. It's only an old people thing. Wait until I tell you the fundamentalists love pickleball. The conservatives are finding pickleball. Warning, warning. Conservatives coming to a pickleball court near you. I'm surprised at meetups how non-sexual they are. Yeah, I think people sort of assume, like, I'm going to go to a sex event where sex is going to happen. And then you get there, and then it's people talking about, like, putting solar panels on their roof. It's people talking about painting miniatures, the new board game they bought, how they want to go camping next weekend, and you're like, what's happening here? This isn't sexy at all. Little do you know. It happens. Like, it's like, that's what I like about munches. It could be 90% talking about taking a camping trip, and then 10% talking about, like, tying somebody to a tree and then beating them like a piñata on the camping trip. Like, it's like mostly vanilla, and then suddenly it'll go way out there, and that's just, how it is. Yeah. Is my, like, elbow normal? What's happening? I feel like my elbow looked weird when I did that. I don't know. Diagnose me with something being wrong with my elbow, I guess. Somebody's going to do it. Somebody's going to be like, you have brittle elbow disease. I don't know. I'm going to invent some shit. Speaking of medical play, I guess. If you're a dom negotiating a CNC scene, Trust your boundaries and stay within them. It's too easy to discount your own needs in order to seem as dominant as possible. Yes, very good point about CNC. As a dom or a top, especially with CNC, I think it's more likely that your partner who is submissive or a bottom will want to go farther and feel more comfortable going there than you are. But in the same way that we don't want doms and tops pushing at the boundaries of their partners, we don't want the same thing to happen in the opposite direction. It's okay to say, hey, I totally hear you. I understand how important that is to you. Thank you for sharing that with me. For right now, I don't feel comfortable going there. I'm not going to say never. If you actually don't say this unless you mean it, I'm not comfortable with going there right now. Maybe at some point in the future we can revisit it, but for right now I'm not really comfortable talking about that being a possibility because it's not going to happen. And I would prefer to stay within these boundaries. And if we can do that, we can have a great scene together. How does that sound? Basically. And then, like, you know, if you do get comfortable with it, if you get more experience, then you can revisit it and you can talk about it, you know, and as being open. Or if you're not into it at all and you know you're never going to want to go there, you know, say that too. You can be like, again, hey, you know, thanks for sharing with me, blah, blah, blah. And you can say, I need to be honest, that's not really something I'm comfortable playing with. I understand this impacts how much you want to play with me, but I need to be true to myself and what my boundaries are. And if you can respect that, I'm happy to keep playing with you. But if not, you know, have fun. Find somebody else who can get those needs met for you. Go right ahead. You know, I think it's, when it comes to talking about boundaries, it can be very easy to get into like a back and forth argument over like whose boundaries are correct and whose desires are correct and valid and right. And I think what's easier is just to like not take it personally. Don't make it about you. Don't make it about a judgment on you. Just be like, hey, thanks for telling me. I really appreciate that. You know, go have fun. Go meet people who are into the same stuff as you. Like, just I find that, especially if you're a dom or a top and you're communicating with a bottom or a submissive, I find a lot of them are very receptive if they have a partner who's a dom or a top, who is, one, able to state their own boundaries, but two, is like not threatened at the idea of a partner going off and getting their needs met or doing scenes with other people. Like, if you're just like, go and do it. It's not for me, but like, it's going to be for someone else. So like, go explore. Like, I think they're going to be more willing to stay connected to you and want to play with you in the areas that you are comfortable with while also playing with other people. And I think that kind of confidence and that surety is like, it's very attractive to people. And also it should hopefully be true. Like, if you can build up that kind of, like, I don't want to say a callus because it makes it seem like you're like burying a truer emotion by like compacting it down. But like, genuinely, I think being able to take those scenarios and not make them about you and like feeling lesser and not feeling as much of a dom, like that'll get you to a really positive place with engaging in kink and having firm boundaries as a dom or a top. Absolutely. All right, we're going to try to get to one more question here. Who will be the lucky guy, gal, or non-binary pal? Let's find out. Yeah, lots of theater kids. Lots of theater kids. Thank you for the response, Evie. You're so welcome, VXU. I did the one about saline. Talked about saline. Also, everyone's wondering what's going on with saline. Roller derby. Rugby. I don't know, opinions are fine. Opinion questions are fine. Surprisingly, there are quite a lot of LGBTQ players who play in the Women's Hockey League, so that's honestly awesome. Same with the Women's Basketball League. Don't know what to make of that, but it is what it is. Okay, last one. Gonna be from Brian. My wife and I are in a DDLG dynamic. My question is, what is the best way to go from a work mindset to a dominant mindset? A classic and perfect question to end our stream on for today. I love it. Okay, so what I'm going to assume that you and your wife live together. Bold assumption, I know, may not actually be true. Some people do. Some people have very different work lives. I'm not going to judge. But if you live together, I'm assuming you live together, and you probably leave the house in the evening. Okay. Gonna be slightly different if you work from home. I think work from home can make it even harder, but I'm assuming, like a lot of people, you go to an office and then you come back at night. And I think when you are coming home from work, the best thing you can do is come up with a ritual to transition from work headspace to Dom headspace. In the same way that you kind of would if you were just trying to transition from work to like a non-work mindset. So like have your partner come up and like take your shoes off, have them take your jacket off, have them say like, I hope you had a great day, sir. Come up with some kind of like ritual call and response when you come through the door, assuming you're home together at the same time. And then, you know, you give them your lunch pail, they put it in the sink, and you can chat about your day. And then, you know, as you're chatting about your day, maybe you're sitting on the couch and they pour you a drink, or they sit by your feet and they're doing things to kind of prompt you to get into your dominant headspace. Maybe you like stroke their head, maybe you call them by an honorific yourself, you call them dear or little or whatever. Now I'm kind of going a more general service direction, but like flavor this as appropriate for however littly your DDLG relationship is, however how overt it happens to be for the two of you, how commonly that comes out. I recommend having some kind of routine that you build up, and then I recommend, like, if you're going to take a time to, like, sit and drink something, what really, oh my gosh, my dog is, like, right on top of the camera right now. She's like, what are you doing, doggo? What are you doing? Oh, you're so close to the camera, I can see it. My goodness. But, like, think, like, when you're in your chair and you're relaxing after work, just, like, take a moment, close your eyes and be aware of the present moment, and just take some breaths and just be aware of like, I am home, I am with my partner, I am not at work. I have other things I could be doing and worrying about with work, but for right now, I'm going to set it down. I'm going to enjoy this drink. I'm going to enjoy how lovely my partner is. I'm going to enjoy the dinner we have together, and just choose to be in that moment. Maybe you change into something that is something you wear during your scenes, or maybe you have like a t-shirt with like a phrase on it that's like a DDLG pun or something, like however you like to be around the house, you know, wear something that's symbolic of that. Your partner can also do the same, and then just like spending mindful time together doing stuff that reinforces your DS relationship, and then hopefully over time that can kind of help you be prompted to be like, oh, this is like DS time and not like work time. But it does take time to be able to do that. And I think the main thing that helps more than anything in that is taking that time to like, as opposed to just go, take that time, take like 10 to 30 minutes to just like pause, be intentionally mindful of the present moment, and think about the mindset you want to cultivate of like, I'm no longer in work mode, now I am in daddy mode, you know, thinking about that and giving yourself permission to set aside work and to not think about it, because it's important that you're staying present in the moment with your partner to build a happy and healthy relationship and marriage. But that's sort of the top level version of it. I know I've talked in videos before about like more from a submissive point of view, like getting into a submissive headspace, but it's very similar for both. I think it's about like wearing symbols, like wearing clothing and things that like remind you of your relationship, and then building a habit and a routine around that. And then as you do that, you can rely on that routine to help you get into the headspace more and more. But it's also, you have to choose. You have to choose to let the work go. And that's really difficult, is to like not think about work, not think about things you should be doing, not think about what's happening tomorrow or next week or the meeting you're having, or whether or not you should quit your job, or whether or not you should ask for a raise. Just like being in the moment is the best thing that you can do. YouTube is still being weird. Just tried to purchase a sticker and I'm not sure it worked. She loves licking her paws. It's like her favorite thing. She probably has some allergies. Actually, I don't really think she has allergies. I just think she likes doing it. Let me see if I got a sticker, because sometimes it does take a minute to go through. Yeah, I don't know what's going on. Yeah, the last one I got was from Tom that just said Pet Bandita. She does lick herself like a cat, it's true. Really enjoy these ideas, templates to get a start on tackling these problems. Thanks also for asking these questions. They're interesting. You are so welcome. Thank you. All right, Bendita. Do you want to say goodbye to people? The people have seen you on camera, but maybe they would like to see you more up close. Come here. Come here, baby. Come here, my baby. Come here. Come here. Oh, I know. I know. We do the ritual. I know. We get under our little tummy, and we roll around. Oh, gosh. Wrong way. Going around this way. Going around this way. Boop, 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 boop. Hello. Hello. Hello, my darling. Hello. Hello. Did you enjoy nice treat? Would you like to thank the people of the internet for the treat? There we go. Nice and supported. There we go. Pomeranians are cat dogs. She's obsessed with cats. She loves cats, don't you? You love cats more than anything on earth. You love cats more than me. If you could run away to chase a cat, you would in a heartbeat. And then you'd catch the cat and you'd be like, well, I don't know what to do now. And you turn around and I wouldn't be there and then you'd be sad. But you do it. You do it. Your little doggo brain would just take over and you do it in a minute. Easy. Baited aftercare for the stream. Yes, yes, yes. I mean, it's so easy to be happy when you're so fluffy and you get lots of love. Yes, cat dog. Oh, what a time! What a time to be alive. The advent of cat dog. Okay, great. All right, I'm gonna head out. Thank you all so much for being here on this Friday night. I will see you all next week. Friday at 6 o'clock as usual. Video on Sunday coming out. We're going to be talking about what's going on with Etsy. So many videos in the pipeline. I've been writing up a storm and editing up a storm. I edited 2 videos today, and I might even edit a 3rd. Crazy. Productivity? Who is she? I'm actually probably going to listen to my audiobook and lay down for a minute and drink some water. What is between those ears? Yeah, you got a big brain. It's about the size of a clementine, probably. That's pretty big. You got a nice big brain. Yeah, it's so good. Listen, I didn't buy a German Shepherd. I didn't get a German Shepherd. I'm not expecting anything crazy. Yes. We love it. Okay. All right. Thank you all so much. I will see what's going on with the sticker thing. My guess is the live chat goal feature messed something up with displaying other types of super chats. Because I did not see one. But I will report it to YouTube and then I'll see what they tell me and then we'll hopefully get it figured out by next week. But thank you all so much. Have a great weekend. Drink some water. Stay safe. COVID is happening still. COVID surge is going on. If you would like to not get sick, I recommend wearing a mask. You can still get them on Amazon. They're pretty cheap, but stay safe. Drink water.